Good morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone. This is the weekly TST, VOLTHA TST um, meeting, and we have a couple of announcements. Let me see, and looks like a few more people are joining. Um, so, well, um, just to go over again, the 2023 ONF broadband meetup hosted by Turk Telecom is coming up in about 2 weeks, October 18th and 19th. If you haven't registered yet, you might want to um, submit, make arrangements because there will be no registration on site for the event. For announcements, the BISDN folks will not be joining us today. I guess there's a public holiday over in Germany, so a lot of people will probably not be on the call. I will be on PTO starting next Thursday, the 5th through the 13th. And I'm pretty sure the BISDN folks will be at a conference next week. So if somebody could cover the TST meeting on the next week in the 10th, that would be great. Okay, so let's start with updates. So pipelines, testing issues, and all that fun stuff. There have been quite a few patches that have gone in. There's been some noticeable changes in the status for the testing jobs and the various failures we've been seeing over time. Mahir brought up a Garrett patch he had in the system that was failing, 34675. That testing run, or that job, finally passed, and I believe it was merged.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Let me see. Did you want to cover anything else with that, or are we good with the testing status for that?
No, nothing to say. It was a patch that I upstreamed a few weeks ago about the race condition in OLT adapter. So it was failing on verification jobs. After your edits and Jan's edits, I think the verification passed, so I merged it.
Okay, good. Okay, so the next item, Jan had posted, it was a ticket or a problem in GitHub. Oh, sorry, actually, was this? No, this was a different one. Okay, so we've been discussing the removal or replacement of port forwarding the system with an ingress controller and services that are native to the Kubernetes cluster rather than exporting data through the external port forwarding mechanism. That was being done we seem to have some transient failures around the system with, since we were running a while, or we wrapped the port forwarding in a while loop that had potential to mask failures if the ports were dying off or not starting properly. So Jan has put some changes into the system to begin the removal, which is good because there's a lot of while infinite loops in the system wrapped around port forwarding. So that'll simplify the system a little bit. And he's making changes to replace that with interacting directly with an ingress controller. The patches are in the system right now. If you want, one of them are on screen. It's Garrett change ID 34765. If anybody would like to go in and see what's being modified. The changes are deployed. They're baking in the system right now. Jan and Roger are actively watching them to make sure that there's no, unforeseen problems or induced test failures or anything like that from the setup. But so far, it looks like the changes are going to be beneficial. So a side announcement. So we did create branches a little while back for VOLTHA 2.12 for the beta release. We will have to go in, given all of the pipeline patches and the fixes and everything else that have gone in since. We're at some point going to go in and just refresh the versions of the scripts that are on the VOLTHA 2.12 branch to bring them to make them equivalent to what's currently in master. So we'll pick up all the fixes in the 2.12 branch. That should be transparent, but that will be happening at some point. And just a quick recap from debugging. As I mentioned, there were plenty of scripting changes that went in. There were a bunch of them all over the place. Too many to go into. Just general debugging items. There's been a lot of debugging added in the build system scripts. Specifically, enter and leave strings are now echoed when calling around times that you're calling a function or when shell scripts are invoked externally. So you should always see pairs of entering and leaving in the logs. If any of them are missing, that's usually a red flag that a stage or something caused the steps or the stage to terminate prematurely. So that gives you a place to start looking for them. And also within the Jenkins scripts, normally you fork off shell script calls with the sh command. We've been modifying those as well. Jenkins sh has a variant where you can pass a label for the stage or the step or the scripts that are being run, and also wrap the script in a triple quoted or in a set of triple quotes. So we've been trying to change the sh commands over into this sh label script format that does two things. There have been instances where printfs within the build system scripts, and it was conditional on failures. Sometimes the output from the echo commands or the stages were lost. I think it's getting streamed probably to the system console, but it's not entirely helpful when something fails and it's just silent with no output. So we've been decorating the sh calls with this extra label. So we'll have two potential places where you can get output for what's currently running: the script running itself, and the Jenkins invocation with the sh command. But that's all debugging that was added. So any questions so far? Okay, continuing on. Jan, this was what I was just talking about a minute ago. Jan raised a ticket or an issue out on GitHub. He found a problem while working on the ingress controller that exposing the KV store for etcd did not seem to be working with TLS when security was enabled on the connection. And he was looking for input on the ticket if anybody would like to add some. Non-TLS connections seem to be working okay. And I think Amit and Mahir have commented on it that it would be a good change to make to have consistent handling for TLS independent of what's being run, any of the commands or the logging functions. If anybody would like to add thoughts, comments for that. Okay, we can keep going then. So since the ingress changes have been going in, that's touching a lot of different things in the build system. So I've been trying to hold off introducing patches to not muddy the waters for what Jan and Roger were working on. So I started looking back at some of my open patches, and I've been doing some work on the make files as of late. Just FYI, this is eventually going to be rolled out into the repositories, but new targets are being added in the make files. So you can do make help to get a list of all the targets that are in the system. There's two new targets being introduced for each of the lint targets. So if you run make lint, that basically runs all the linting commands for a repository. We can check Go language syntax, shell scripts, YAML files, JSON, blah, blah, blah. So for each of the individual lint calls, like the one I've been working on is the shell check script, adding a few features in it. So lint calls another target that's called lint shell, which is just the generic entry point into the lint makefile logic. So for lint shell checking, there are three targets. One's called, they're labeled as lint shell mod, lint shell all, and lint shell source. lint shell all performs basically the checking we have today. Glob all the bash scripts that are in the sandbox and run shell check against them. The addition that's going to be a little bit more useful, there's one called lint shell mod. Rather than doing it against the entire sandbox, this will basically do a get status, figure out what files you modified, and it'll only run shell check against the sources that you've modified. So if you're trying to do individual cleanups, you don't have a whole sea of output to go through. The patches and the behavior are here on this wiki page, the Confluence page that's linked to here. The patches for the individual, the patches are going in three pieces. One documents the target help. One is an installer for the shell check command. So it's going to be basically a one-stop shopping. And the third makefile is the actual target logic for the lint shell targets. If anybody would like to go through there, do code reviews or feedback, that's always welcome. And this is the usage for the different targets. Make lint currently runs make lint shell all. So we syntax check everything by default in the build system. Okay, so the second makefile edit that's going in. So this was part of a refactoring effort from last year. We're basically trying to get a consistent set of makefiles into all the VOLTHA repositories, so we have consistent targets and consistent behavior everywhere. We did not have a central makefile repository at that time, so there was a lot of copying and pasting going on, which I know is ugly, but it was the path of least resistance to get it deployed. There is a library makefile repository called ONF Make now. And again, if anybody would like to go in and do reviews or look at any of the logic, the README file has the hierarchy and all that fun stuff. But I'm trying a little experiment in VOLTHA docs right now to change the makefile structure so that we use the library makefile. So we basically can reuse the library makefiles across all of the VOLTHA repositories. The thing that makes this a little bit difficult is some of the repositories have repository specific targets and behavior that need to be maintained. So the hierarchy going forward will actually have two sets of makefiles. Underneath the makefile directory, there'll be a local directory for any minor variants that are needed that are repository specific targets and behavior. And the rest will be under ONF make, which is all the library makefiles. Loading, access, targets, everything should be transparent once it's all deployed, but that's a work in progress right now. I don't think he's on right now. Nikesh was having a problem with a test failure in the Helm charts. Let me see. There was a sanity test check failure, and see, one of the manifestations, there were a lot of crash backoff loops that were being reported in the logs, and the suspicion right now is that maybe due to not having the latest Helm charts included. I know I'm not going to do a good description on it, but it's basically in both the docs, this topic developed with the latest master code. Oh, excuse me. Explains what was going on. And so the problem that's being encountered, Nikesh's job essentially needs to run with this extra -f examples dev values flag in order to run properly. And there were a couple of questions that came up. One of the ones I had would be, if we go in and modify the Jenkins pipelines to begin passing this extra flag, which essentially says use the latest and greatest values off of master. That makes total sense. The question is, we're not currently running with this flag enabled on the Helm charts. Is there any potential for fallout if we begin using the latest variant, or the latest, I think it's the stack in VOLTHA Infra, if we begin using them everywhere? Or I guess what I'm trying to say is, does it make sense to add this flag in the Jenkins job so everybody starts using it? If we do that, it's not a big deal, but one of the things we'll also have to accommodate is this affects release, because if the jobs running on the master branch are using the infra and the VOLTHA infra and the VOLTHA stack charts all the time, we then at release time need to take steps to freeze the versions of infra and stack. So we obviously don't want to continue using master, because we'd pull changing code into the frozen release, which can end up affecting the release testing. Was just curious if anybody had any thoughts or know of any potential problems we might run into if we do this. And the addition is intended to fix a Helm chart problem that Nikesh's job was running into. Does anybody have any thoughts one way or the other, or we should do some experiments to see if anything does break?
Actually, I don't have any idea and experience on that, actually.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so side note here, I sent you a question in Slack when you have a minute. Just a question about the VOLTHA Protos release, but that's nothing big right now. Okay, so I guess with that,
Okay,
go on.
I'll check it. As I said, I'm on my way to office. When I
Okay.
arrive to office, I'll check it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's nothing pressing. Yeah, just whenever you have time. Okay, with that, I guess, let's see. I think that was all the items that we have right now. Let's see. Yeah, and next week, if the BISDN guys are in, they can probably fill in some of the other testing background that's been cleaned up. With that, I guess the floor is open for topics and discussion if anybody would like to bring them up. Okay. I guess we'll have a short meeting today then. Okay, it looks like now it's almost 11:30. Well, half past the hour. Okay, if there are no other additions or no other topics anybody would like to discuss, I guess we'd give you back a half an hour early then. Okay. Well, I guess thanks for joining.
Thank you, Joe. Bye-bye.
Yep. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.
Bye, thanks.